And my name is Rabbi Alan Friedman. I'm the rabbi here at Temple Beth Shalom, a proud leader within Austin Interfaith. And tonight, on behalf of the leadership of this congregation, I want to welcome our mayoral and county judge candidates.
Austin Interfaith is a nonpartisan, multi-ethnic, multi-issue organization of 42 congregations, schools, unions, and associations who work together to address public issues that affect the well-being of families and neighborhoods in our community. We are a broad-based citizens organization committed to promoting justice and democratic values. We work to develop leaders and to provide opportunities for member institutions to negotiate effectively through the political process with local government and community leaders around issues of common concern. Austin Interfaith is a political organization and strictly nonpartisan. We do not endorse candidates. Our candidate is our agenda of issues.
Good evening. My name is Pam Thomas, and I work for an amazing organization named Capital Idea.
And my name is Robert Williams. I'm a member of Mount Olive Baptist Church and a leader with Austin Interfaith.
This will be roll call for the congregations and institutions. When you hear your congregation or institution name called, we would like you to energetically stand and be recognized.
Abiding Love Lutheran Church. Central Presbyterian Church. Congregation of Austin. Congregation of Beth Israel. Ebenezer Baptist Church. First Unitarian Church. Journey into Faith. Mount Olive Baptist Church. Yo! All right. We got them. Our Lady Guadalupe Catholic Church. Prince of Peace Lutheran Church.
Okay. San Francisco de Assisi Episcopal Church. San Jose Catholic Church. St. Albert the Great Catholic Church. St. David's Episcopal Church, St. Ignatius Martyr Catholic Church, St. John's Episcopal Church, St. John's Lutheran Church, St. John's United Methodist Church, St. Julian of Norwich Episcopal Church, St. Thomas More Catholic Church.
Temple Beth Shalom. Temple Beth Shalom. University United Methodist Church. Wildflower. Brazos Interfaith Immigration Network. Community Foundation Communities. Lutheran.
Ridgetop Elementary School. Travis Heights Elementary School. Taxi Driver Association. Workers Defense Project. Oak Creek Village Tenants Association. Carpenters Local 1266. International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. International Association of Heat and Frost Insulators and Allied Workers. Iron Workers 482. Painters and Allied Trades Local 1799. Painters and Allied Trades Waco. Plumbing and pipe fitters, Local 1286. Sheet metal workers, Local 67. Sierra Club Austin. And Texas Drought Project. Thank you, thank you. Woo!
And the Equal Justice Center.
Okay, number 5. Okay, so you already gave yourselves a hand. Thank you.
All right.
Well done.
If we have missed any congregation, please stand up and tell us what we missed.
Leona, Local 762.
Tonight, we're gathered to celebrate our achievements. Among these, we're preserving 173 units of affordable housing in the Bolden Creek neighborhood, increasing funding for Capital Idea for another 50 students, $1 million in funding for social service contracts, and historic victories for clean energy, low-income weatherization, and funding for buyouts for families living in the Onion Creek floodplain, and that is just this year.
In addition to that, we've worked with our school district to increase wages for construction workers, and we've worked with our city council to increase the living wage policy and to do a study to examine the wage increase for all city employees. So far this year, ordinary Austin Interfaith leaders have secured millions in public and private dollars for neighborhood flood recovery, libraries, parks, housing, health facilities, workforce development, and much, much more.
And we did this because we are organized. We listen to the concerns of others in our institutions, the families that are out here working hard and paying taxes, struggling to provide a future for the next generation. And we challenge ourselves to take the initiative and act together in this great city. Tonight, we are going to look forward to what is possible and to challenge the candidates you see arrayed before you to join with us in reshaping our city and county for the good of all. We, together in this room, give voice to ordinary individuals and families in the political process so that all of us in Austin and in Travis County can thrive.
Because Austin and Travis County can and must do better. Despite the city's description as being in a golden age of opportunity based on our diverse economy and low unemployment, we have a disturbing pattern of inequity that keeps getting worse. Our city is described as being one of the top cities for young homebuyers, yet many of the members of our institution struggle to hold on to their homes, and each week our congregation serves countless homeless individuals. We've been described as having a golden age, but for some it's more like a gilded age, where rent has risen 50% in 10 years, while wages have only risen 9%. While shiny new condos and luxury apartments are built every day, our families are pushed out of their homes and apartments and forced to move out of the city. Our neighborhood schools lose students and funding. And while we celebrate the opening of new restaurants and approve new bars and establishments to sell alcohol, 25% of children in Travis County live in food insecure households.
Our shared religious traditions caution against inequality and call upon us to establish an economy of shared prosperity. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, we read in Hebrew in the Hebrew scriptures, justice, justice you shall pursue. It is joined in that tradition from the Gospels, warning against hoarding treasures for oneself by not sharing. We hear the cry, we hear the call of Pope Francis to say, thou shalt not, to an economy of inequality and exclusion. And Unitarian Universalism calls for justice, equity, and compassion. Our religious roots call us here tonight. and call upon all of us to help shape Austin's future.
Because Austin and Travis County, like so many other cities and communities across the country in the last 30 years, have seen disproportionate gains go to the wealthiest. In fact, Austin is ranked the 10th most income-segregated large city in the country. We want to make Austin livable for all its inhabitants, including our children and our grandchildren.
We come together as members of Austin Interfaith to bring people together for the purpose of improving our community. We not only protest injustice, we do much more than that. We take positive steps towards bringing about justice. In a few moments, we're going to hear some statistics that may be shocking about life in our city. And what we're going to explore tonight with our candidates is how to take this information and turn Austin and Travis County in a place that is appropriate to raise our children and grandchildren. But the point of tonight is this. We sit here tonight on the verge of a new era in local politics, a new structure. But the only way this structure is going to work is if we are informed citizens and we go out and use that information in voting, to vote. The challenge before us is quite simple. What are we going to tell our children and grandchildren that we did tonight and we did in this election season to make Austin livable for all? Tonight and on Election Day, November 4th, and in early voting, even before that, we will come together to decide the future of Austin and Travis County.
My name is Carlota Garcia of Our Lady of Guadalupe Catholic Church. So what precisely is going on, and how exactly did Austin and Travis reach this state of inequality? For one, private corporations shifted the property tax burden to families. Property values rose a lot over the last 10 years. But families are the ones that are paying the higher share of property taxes. In 2000, according to the Texas Comptroller, homeowners already paid the largest share of property taxes that support schools, 45%, the blue part of the pie on the left. 12 years later, according to the Austin American-Statesman, that amount increased to 54%. That's right, Austin Interfaith. We as homeowners pay the majority of local property taxes. And to make matters worse, the share that commercial and industrial property owners paid went down to less than 20%. How can this be? Texas is one of only 4 states in the U.S. that do not require sales price disclosures. This means that commercial and industrial property owners don't have to reveal the property's true market value, including what they paid. And this deprives taxing districts of essential information. On top of that, corporations exploited a recent change in state law that allows them to appeal whenever they feel like their taxes are too high. So for example, in 2012, AMD lowered their tax valuation by $13 million just by protesting the appraisal. The next year, when Travis tried to raise the assessment to take into account several expensive buildings that were going up on their property, AMD appealed again to keep the valuation low, $38 million lower than what they soon sold the property for. So with corporate profits at an all-time high, companies like AMD, Samsung, and Chase, they can afford to hire teams of lawyers and experts to fight the county. And this saves them tens of millions of dollars per year, but it costs us hundreds of millions of dollars in lost revenue. Does this seem fair? No! This tremendous discount for corporations is over and beyond the additional millions that some of them get through economic incentives. Should corporations be allowed to pay less than their fair share? No. Second point, while corporations pled poverty, real poverty rose for families. According to the City of Austin demographer, Ryan Robinson, the overall poverty rate for residents of the City of Austin is 20% overall. You can take a look at the circle on the left. Now, Austin's poverty rate is higher than that of the greater Austin area, which is 15.5%. And according to Mr. Robinson, it's even higher than that of Texas as a whole, 17.9%. Now, that's not the full extent of the damage. The younger you are, the more likely you are to be poor. And so the poverty rate for Austin children is 30%. So one can say that Austin is doing quite well in poverty. More distressing is that if you are young and of color, your chance of being poor is dramatically higher. The poverty rate for white children under the age of 5 is about 6.7%, under 7. For Latino children, that number is 44%. For Black children, it is 52.9%, more than half. Is this the kind of society that we want in Austin? Is this the kind of inequality that we want baked into our future? No. One would think that with this kind of crisis, our city and county would do everything possible to ensure, forget this generation of adults, at least that the next generation of kids coming up would have every chance it needs to succeed, an equal opportunity. But that is not the case. City and county budgets persistently prioritize enforcement over human development. The City of Austin General Fund only allocates 18 cents per dollar for kids in the form of libraries, parks, health, and human services. An additional 11 cents per dollar goes to animals, municipal courts, planning, and development. And you can see that's less than 2/3. Now this year, Austin Interfaith, we did applaud the City of Austin because they approved $13 million in funding for all social service contracts for programs serving the entire spectrum of our city, from pre-birth, prenatal care, up through seniors. But that's only half. 13 million is less than half than what San Antonio spends on pre-K alone. They spend $30 million. Not every library in Austin has a full-time children's librarian on staff. Not every park has a bathroom. Not every park has a water fountain or basic lighting for safety. And in the meantime, let's look at the rest of the budget. Almost 70 cents of every general fund dollar goes to public safety. And Travis County expenditures don't look that different. Now, we need to be very clear. Austin Interfaith recognizes the efforts of our police officers, fire departments, and emergency medical services. We need to have continued high standards in the city. According to the City of Austin, APD, and the FBI, Austin is the second safest major city in America. That's worth celebrating, right? However, when taxpayer funds are spent obtaining military-grade SWAT vehicles and quadrupling our supply of multi-million-dollar helicopters, we have to ask ourselves, at what cost? Are we preparing for war against the residents of Austin? Economic development has got to benefit us all in order for it to be true to its promise of abundance, wealth, and prosperity. The funding of Capital Idea is a good example of where the city and the county does just that. However, we can't claim success with an economic system that leaves so many children behind. Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz reminds us that radical economic inequality is not an act of God, and it's not an act of the invisible hand of the market. He says and reminds us it is a human creation. And since it is a human creation, that means we, as a city and as a county, have the power to change it. Do we want to change this, Austin?
Tonight, Austin Interfaith has gathered to witness where candidates for mayor and county judge stand on our agenda of issues. We know where we stand, don't we? Yeah. We stand for good jobs with living wages, creative education for a creative economy, community resources, neighborhood safety, affordable housing, affordable health care, clean energy and the environment, and fair treatment of immigrants.
We've seen some statistics tonight, but we're also going to hear from some real people affected by economic inequality and social pressures. You'll see leaders ask questions of tonight's guests that will result in commitments to work together to accomplish what must be done to eradicate some of the injustices we've dealt with tonight. Candidates are expected to describe real plans for how to reach our common goals, how to tackle the challenges of these enormous proportions. We're not looking for platitudes and slogans. I'm sure the candidates have noticed that already. We're looking for real commitments, and we hope to share that with you tonight as well.
Before we conclude our event, Rabbi Friedman and I will ask all of you to be accountable and help Austin Interfaith make these commitments real. So Austin Interfaith, are you with us? With us tonight is a special guest from the Austin Independent School District, Interim Superintendent Paul Cruz. Dr. Cruz, what do you think about what we have just shared?
Well, first of all, I do want to thank Austin Interfaith. I want to thank Jacob for the invitation and Minerva. We meet quite regularly in my office to talk about some of the issues that we're raising here today. And I think it's so important that when you have individuals such as yourselves who care about Austin, care about the future, care about kids, that we're coming together to set our strategic vision for the future. In some of the things, and I'll just provide a quick context for Austin ISD. In Austin ISD, we have around a little over 85,000 students with 129 instructional sites, 12,000 employees with 6,000 teachers, all for one thing, to make sure all kids learn and succeed, making sure all students graduate from high school. Austin today, it's different than it was in the past. Our graduation rate was in the 70s, about mid-70s or so. Now it is at 84.1%, a higher increase in the number of students who are earning a diploma. That's important. A student who earns a high school diploma, when we talk about wages, when we talk about jobs, when we talk about careers, that student will have many more opportunities than a student who may not earn that high school diploma. It continues on for a student who then continues on to a 2-year study or a 4-year study in their earnings. And that's something that's important for all of our youngsters. Every single one of our students wants that equal life chance. I think what a great opportunity today to talk about that equal life chance for all of our students. It can't be for some, it can't be for one, it has to be for all. In Austin ISD, all right, got to hear that, right? I'm liking this now. I think I'm going to bring in all the staff and do this. Something that is impacting us, and I do want to thank our officials with the City of Austin because they did come to the support for AISD. When we have a system of recapture, and I forgot one, I didn't mention one statistic. As you were mentioning the poverty rates, in Austin ISD, with our 85,000 students, 62% of the students in Austin ISD are students who live in poverty. Yet we're considered a property wealthy district. We don't feel property wealthy. There are other districts that are considered Chapter 41 or property wealthy with a 15% poverty rate, a 3% poverty rate. We are at 62%. The money that you raise in Austin goes to the state under a system called recapture. This year, and in the previous years, we've sent over $1 billion back to the state. This year, AISD, with its property values increasing, we are sending to the state $175 million. We can use some of that money to educate our kids. 62% of our kids living in poverty. While I'm proud of our graduation rate, we have a lot more students who are not graduating from high school. If this trend continues, by the year 2018, we will give over $300 million of Austin money to the state under the system recapture. We need to work together, to come together, to support all of our kids, provide that leadership, and I want to thank Austin Interfaith for your leadership, your work, and your commitment to Austin and to Austin's children. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Cruz. Now, we will hear stories from leaders in our institutions and community.
Good evening. My name is Susana Rodriguez, a parent at Travis Heights Elementary. I have an 8-year-old daughter. I work for Seton and AISD part-time. Because my jobs are only during the school year, I only get paid for those months, so I can barely afford the basics. This is why it is important that my community provide enrichment activities. During the school year, my daughter participates in the free after-school program called Prime Time. This summer, most of the summer we spent it at Stacy Pool, watched movies at Deep Eddy, we went to the library, and even got to watch the World Cup games at Butler Park. It was great to learn and do fun things together. If it had not been for these free or low-cost activities, we could have spent the summer at home. Many of the families that I work with also rely on these programs. We need to increase investments on programs that support
So what she wants is continued funding for prime time. Yeah. Thank you. My name is Ofelia Zapata, member of San Jose Catholic Church and a leader with Austin Interfaith. I am a proud resident of Southeast Austin, Dove Springs. I'm a proud grandmother of 6 grandchildren. It broke my heart and made me angry that my zip code 78744 was number 1 with the highest youth obesity. I already knew we had been working on improving our neighborhoods for safety because we had the highest gang activity, vandalism, burglaries, and many other criminal activities going on. San Jose and my Dove Springs neighbors walked together to organize and walk our streets to reclaim our neighborhood. We formed partnerships with local organizations to look at food served in our schools, the H-E-B, the convenience stores, and to improve access to healthier foods. To address obesity, the parents have formed wellness teams and Zumba classes before and after school. 5 of our 6 parks have been adopted by residents in the neighborhood so that we can increase physical activity and redesign our parks so they will entice more families and children to play in the parks. However, our parks are lacking permanent restrooms and water fountains. Our rec centers are lacking funds. We're lacking 13 staff to provide organized programs for our teens. If we make this investment in our teens, we will have safer neighborhoods. We need our city public officials to invest in our parks and recreation centers. Investing in our parks and recreation centers will make my children and your children, all the children in Austin, live longer and healthier lives. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alan Gonzalez Otero. I am a 13-year-old U.S. citizen and a member of Our Lady of Guadalupe Catholic Church. Where my brother and I are altar servers. This past year, I won first place in the Russian Olympiad and the National Junior Honor Society Award. I also go with my family to camp events to clean Lady Bird Lake. I'm here tonight to ask you to stop the deportation of hard-working immigrants. I ask this of you because when I was 9 years old, my father was detained and locked up for 3 weeks because he could not present valid identification. I remember when my mom had to tell me what had happened. She had said, "Your dad has been stopped by immigration." I could see the fear in her eyes, and I felt scared and worried that I might not see my dad again. People shouldn't be punished for driving me to school or to church. My family, my parents' community, and others deserve to live without the fear of deportation because of traffic mistakes. For the sake of my future and families like mine, please support a municipal ID for all residents of Austin and an end to the Secure Communities program in Travis County. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shannon Jones, and I live in Rosewood Courts, a public housing development located here in Austin in District 1. The units at Rosewood Courts do not have air conditioning, and lack of air conditioning means that my family cannot get enough sleep. I have a sleep disorder which requires a CPAP machine, but without cool air, it is nearly unbearable to sleep. Every night I put my son to bed early to get the correct amount of rest, but he can't sleep in the heat. And he is not the only one. Children living in low-income housing, such as Rosewood, feel such relief when they go to school to be in a cool environment that they sleep. Education is then affected. Think of the ripple effect that lack of a cool environment has on us: health, education, and self-esteem. Through my work with Austin Interfaith, I know that too many families live in substandard housing like I do. Unlike mine, too many landlords don't care about their tenants. The city is letting our dilapidated housing become worse rather than investing in what we need and deserve. We need the city and county support to make housing in Austin more affordable and dignified for renters and also for homeowners. Thank you.
And now we will hear from Dr. Rhodes, the president of Austin Community College.
Thank you. You know, it's wonderful when people work together from different walks of life. They come together to solve community problems. In the Austin area, businesses have trouble finding qualified workers with the skills for the high-paying jobs. ACC has the programs necessary to give the skills for those jobs. Capital Idea, founded through the efforts of Austin Interfaith, has an amazing record of success moving adults out of poverty and into living wage careers that fill the gaps that businesses need. That makes ACC proud to be the education delivery partner that makes this success. The businesses are relieved to be able to fill the needed jobs. The adult students are thankful to embark upon amazing careers, and the city and county are thrilled that graduates pay more taxes and no longer need costly social services. This approach could be even more effective if students had earn and learn opportunities at public and private institutions. Austin Community College is working with Capital Idea to allow this program to reach more adults in poverty and extend it to a more general student audience. We call the expansion, We call the expansion of this project Career Expressway. The work we have done so far has been through a partnership between taxpayers, voters, businesses, the City of Austin, Capital Idea, Austin Interfaith, Travis County. We need the voters, businesses, the city, and the county to help us fund the expansion of Career Expressway. We thank you for your support, and it is now my honor to introduce a proud graduate of Austin Community College and of Capital Idea, Maricela Caracamo, a 2014 RN graduate.
Thank you, Dr. Rhodes. Well, my name is Maricela Carcamo. I am a nurse navigator at Austin Regional Clinic and a graduate of Capital Idea. During my 6-year journey from a GED to an associate's degree, Capital Idea provided the guidance and financial assistance that made school possible. Your support of Capital Idea is breaking cycles and changing lives. Growing up, my life was unstable. Back then, my parents did struggle with substance abuse, which led to periods of homelessness for us. I dropped out of high school and I became a teen parent. I found a minimum wage job as a telemarketer, and for years I racked up debt just trying to make ends meet. Even with the government assistance through TANF and Medicaid and WIC, it was hard. I thought of my life as a failure. I felt powerless to change my circumstances. And lived in fear for the next big expense that would come. Finally, I called 211 and I asked for help. When the rep told me about Capital Idea, I jumped to the opportunity and got accepted. Capital Idea staff and students became like a second family to me. My fourth child came along just before a semester of extremely demanding classes. I was exhausted and I was seriously thinking about quitting. But my instructors at ACC and career navigator Maria all assured me that I could make it, and they were right. Last year I graduated with my associate's degree in nursing from Austin Community College. My pay jumped to over $25 an hour. And I've recently been promoted again. Yeah. I love my job, and I'm excited about the opportunities that I have to keep growing in my career. Before Capital Idea, my family struggled to make ends meet. Today, we're building a savings, not only for emergencies, but also for fun stuff, like big goals like buying a house. With your continued support of Capital Idea, more families like mine will find their path out of poverty and into a bright, successful future. Thank you.
We have now set the backdrop to begin to hear from our candidates. Reminder that we are a nonpartisan organization. What we are interested in knowing is where the candidates stand on our issues. We have asked the candidates tonight to respect each other and to please be blunt in what they have to say. We also want to remind all of you that if you hear something that you like, support for our issues, it's fine to applaud. But if you don't hear that, the response will be quiet, and that nothing in the way of negative vocalization will be tolerated. So, let us begin to address our candidates.
Thank you, Rabbi Friedman. My name is Kayvon Saborian. My institution is the Equal Justice Center, and I am a proud leader with Austin Interfaith. So the first question we have tonight for the candidates is, we know that jails cost more than schools, that policemen cost more than teachers, and that night vision goggles cost more than public park water fountains. The city and the county approved budgets with an unprecedented amount to be spent on law enforcement. If elected, what will you do to change the culture to recognize that education and opportunities for low-income children and adults contribute far more to public safety than ever-increasing reliance on law enforcement officers and equipment. First up is candidate Sarah Eckhart.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kayvon. I'll skip the pleasantries and get straight to what you all want to hear. I pledge to you that in my very first year as county judge, I will work toward the doubling of funding for workforce training and education in Travis County. Programs that truly help people prosper, whether they come to us through Health and Human Services or through the court system, do more to build an economy of shared prosperity, do more for public safety than the dollars that we spend on courts and corrections. So I want to add to the unfortunate list of statistics that you laid out to make it very clear what we're up against, because I am going to need your advocacy. Our budget in justice, corrections, and public safety is approximately $300 million at Travis County. Our budget in health and human services is approximately $53 million. The TCSO budget has increased more than 30% in the last 6 years. This at a time when the unincorporated area that is monitored by the sheriff's deputies is decreasing, the jail population is stable, and the crime rate is low. Further, it's not just the sheriff's department, it's also the state. If you have a wreck at I-35 across from the Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium, there are no less than 9 law enforcement agencies that have jurisdiction to respond to your accident. That is a gross overlap. So we need to focus on education and employment where our tax dollars can do the most good, and I pledge to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Eckhart. Candidate McNamara.
Thank you, Kayvon. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. Folks, I agree with you that the culture of the community is very important, as is education of both children and adults. And what we should realize is that our law enforcement is not there to hinder educational process, but to protect our low-income neighborhoods and provide a safe environment that promotes learning. The gang activity, the drug culture, the shootings, these hinder and detract from the learning experience. Without a safe environment, your children walk to school with the possibility of being abducted on the way, and this happens quite regularly. It hadn't been that long ago that someone went into Reagan High School near where I lived and stabbed a young student to death, his ex-girlfriend. We've got to be able to provide safe environments for our children to get to school, to get home. On that, I will pledge to you, we'll make sure that your children are safe and kept safe as they attend school, when they play in the neighborhoods, when they play in the parks. It's of utmost importance. One thing you need to remember, please, is that part of the budgeting for the public safety is required by law that Travis County take care of the county jail, and that's a huge expense for us. Whether it's full or not, we have to take care of the inmates there.
Well,
So,
Kenneth McNamara, if I can just interrupt.
Yes.
The question that we have tonight is, we've heard that the city of Austin is the second safest major city in the country. So our question is not, what are you going to do to fund more law enforcement? The question is, every dollar that we spend, and we've been increasing every year the dollars we spend on law enforcement, doesn't go to a program that might offer an opportunity for someone to choose a path where they're going to have a career and a life and a living wage, rather than a path that will lead them to be a criminal or somebody who's a negative to our schools and our communities. So will you work with Austin Interfaith to address those inequalities?
I will work with Austin Interfaith. I will work with any group and on any problem that's brought to me. I have an open ear and I will listen to you. But we can't detriment our law enforcement to the take away from the safety of our children and our neighborhoods.
Thank you, Kenneth McNamara.
I would just add one more. I had 15 seconds. The fact is, education and law enforcement enforcement are not mutually exclusive. They should be a combined effort to make sure that we have good schools and safe neighborhoods and safe parks. So that's what I pledge to you.
Thank you, Candidate
Thank
McNamara.
you.
Response was not as clear as we'd like, and we'll have to record it as a no or as an unclear response.
Next up are the city mayoral candidates. First up is candidate Adler. If you could please use the microphone to the left. Thank you.
Let me begin by saying thank you to Austin Interfaith. You are the moral conscience of this city. It costs $20,000 a year to incarcerate someone. It costs $9,000 a year to put someone through our schools. 75% of the people that are incarcerated are high school dropouts. There is a direct relationship between public safety and how we treat that in education. Public safety is important. It's a big part of our budget. But we make decisions and choices that dictate how much we spend. We make decisions about how we live that determine the burden that public safety needs to address. We just had a recent study by the city with respect to how we do festivals in this city. And I was hoping that report would come out and it would talk about how we do festivals over a 15-year period of time in a way that would also address its burden and how that affects public safety, but it didn't. It looked at a 1.5-year horizon and it recommended additional spending. We need to change culture in this city, and how do you do that? You make education the priority in this city. I've never understood why it is that the mayor of this city has not been involved with education, because there is nothing that impacts a city as much as education does. And I pledge to you that in my office there will be a staff member that is dedicated as the education outreach coordinator, and in our office education will be a priority. We'll work toward universal pre-K in our city. We'll address the access and dropout rate. We'll address and pull down the state money for 3-year-old education that we are not accessing right now. We'll fight to change the weights and formulas so that we pull down more of the money and keep more of the money here. We'll work with wraparound services in our schools so our city can help more. And we will work together with combined tax rates with the school district to ensure the city picks up more social service funding so we're not sending that money back to the state.
Thank you, candidate Adler. Next up, candidate Cheryl Cole.
I'm going to skip with the pleasantries, just like our new county judge, or to-be county judge, Sarah Eckhart. There is no doubt in anyone's minds sitting on this stage or out in the audience that education is a #1 priority for now and for generations to come. The question is, what can you expect your leaders to do about it as a matter of policy? I commit to you, if I am mayor, I will continue to work with the school district, Austin Interfaith, ACC, and all the educational institutions in this city, including Houston-Tillotson and St. Edwards and the others, to make Austin a place where we emphasize education. I started my career in public service with the PTA, and I was a PTA president, and I recognized that we had children that we were responsible for from every economic level and income level, and it was the PTA who helped those kids and especially worked with other organizations for after-school programming. My boys would not have done as well as they have done if that after-school programming was not available. This year in the budget, we added significant sums, over, I think it was about $3 million for the first time, to help AISD with its recapture issue that Dr. Paul Cruz laid out. So we have to look for all opportunities to work with the school district to help our children. I'm looking for a timekeeper. Am I? Okay. We have to look for every single opportunity to help promote education within our city, and I commit to do that with you.
Thank you, Candidate Cole. Next up is candidate Mike Martinez.
Thank you, Kayvon, for the question. Thank you, Austin Interfaith, for hosting this accountability session. The answer is yes, and it's a blunt yes. And I'll continue doing what we've done at City Hall. You all know, as you've watched budget cycle after budget cycle, that it's easy to say we should not fund these programs, we should lower the tax rate, we should take all of our budget surplus and give it back to the taxpayers. We have a moral responsibility to take that money and spend it wisely while trying to hold the tax rate down. But you also know if we don't fund some programs, it's going to cost us way more in the long run. We have held the line on public safety the last 3 contracts in a row. In fact, the firefighters have been without a contract for 3 years. The police officers and EMS have been held to a 1% pay raise, while we have taken care of our general city employees with 3% and 3.5% the last 2 years in a row. That is equity. That is taking the responsibility of crafting our budgets and making sure that those who need it the most are the ones that we are supporting the most. I completely agree with Austin Interfaith's suggestion that folks that don't need tax breaks shouldn't be given tax breaks. It's politically easy for me to stand up here and tell you I'd support a tax break for everyone in this room, but I have a moral responsibility to stand here and tell you I can't support that, because it needs to go to those who need it the most, not to everyone in our community, and I'll continue to stand on that position. I thank Austin Interfaith for the work that we've done year after year. When I first got on the council, Capital Idea was at $350,000 in funding, and each and every budget year I have fought to raise that to where it is today. My commitment is that in my first term in office, we will end up with a doubling of the $13 million in social service contracting, because without that, I know what it costs as a firefighter when people call 911 because they don't have any other resource. We must fund our social services.
Thank you, candidate Martinez. Our next question for the candidates is as follows, and for this question, we'll have the city mayoral candidates go first and the county judge candidates go after them. The Travis County Sheriff's unnecessary collaboration with ICE through the Secure Communities program causes immigrants to be deported for even minor offenses that present no threat to public safety. This tears families apart and causes distrust with law enforcement. Our question tonight is, what will you do about the incarceration and deportation of immigrants who present no threat to public safety in the city and Travis County? Candidate Cole, will you please go first? Thank you.
I'm proud to say that I was a co-sponsor on a resolution that challenged the Travis County and the whole ICE program and how they are handling the deportation issue. I am not only against that, I think it is morally wrong. And so that resolution actually asked the city manager to come back with recommendations to council on what we could do as a city council to address the issue. And one of the things the city manager came back with relatively quickly was a recommendation that we have a magistrate facility that is owned and operated by the city, and that we terminate our contract with the county for booking those types of inmates, and so we don't have to deal with the deportation issue, and I am a strong supporter of that. The other item that I am very proud to have been the lead sponsor on is municipal IDs. And I heard testimony about, I think it was Alan, actually gave testimony about the difficulties that his dad was having with not having an ID. And that is specifically targeted not just to the immigrant population, but it impacts the immigrant population disproportionately, because without an ID, you often can't get a job, you can't have health services, and you can't do banking, and you end up in a situation with predatory lending, which is bad for a family. And so that resolution is in the works and coming back with recommendations on how we can further implement it. And I look forward to working with Austin Interfaith and the other stakeholders to make it a reality for the city of Austin. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Cole. One point of clarification, please, Candidate Cole, if you may. We just like some clarification. If elected mayor, will you commit to ensure that the city manager follows up on those city ordinances as the city council intended them?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Candidate Martinez.
The short answer again is yes, but we can do more. We don't need to wait for the city manager. We need to direct the city manager. We need to tell him, stop using our taxpayer dollars in a facility that doesn't harbor Austin and Travis County values. It's plain and simple. We provide $6 million of your taxpayer money every year to run the county jail. If we can't get the county and the sheriff to agree to our values and our policies, we need to take that $6 million and create our own magistration system so that anyone that's picked up and anyone that has to go through the magistration process doesn't have to be subjected to going through ESCOM and going through ICE detainers and being put on hold. There is a pathway that we can take. We just need to be directive to the city manager. It does us no good to accomplish the things that we've accomplished over the years, like an $11 an hour living wage, like prevailing wages, like providing health care benefits and domestic partner benefits when people seek tax incentives, if we're going to take those middle-class, hardworking families and just rip them apart and incarcerate them. It works against our own best interest. We must stop sending the APD law enforcement officers with detainees through the Travis County Jail until we have a better option.
Thank you, Candidate Martinez. Candidate Steve Adler.
Austin is a special place. We have a special soul and spirit. You go anywhere in this country and say you're from Austin, it means something to people. And that's because of the values that we have in this community. And being the community that has the highest percentage deportation of nonviolent people is not consistent with the values of our community. We need to stop the ICE. We need to stop that program. And if what it takes to do that is the city has its own booking, then we need to do that. And quite frankly, the reports from that indicate that it costs less than what we're doing right now anyhow. And it enables us then to further our values in our city. That rips apart families. It causes distrust in law enforcement, and it stops the reporting of crimes when people are threatened. And we need to do better than that. And together with that, we need to have a municipal ID in this city. It's a basic civil liberty. It helps people identify who they are. It helps people with health insurance. It helps people open up banks. It helps people rent work equipment or get into bars. We need to do better in this city. You know, in this country, we have immigration laws. But we have also invited millions of people to this country with the promise of employment. We have spoken two ways at the same time in this country. We've said the law sets these rules, you can't come, but we have also said just as loudly, if not more loudly, that you can come to this country and you can get a job. And when people come to this country and work, we can't just change our mind. We have a moral obligation to the people that have come here, the people that are part of our community, and we need to treat them that way.
Candidate Adler, I just have to ask the same point of clarification, which is in June, the City Council passed a resolution to have the city manager look into a new Austin police booking facility that would be an alternative to the county jail. If you're elected mayor, are you committed to making sure that the city manager goes through with that?
Yes.
Thank you. So the same question is going to be for the county judge candidates. Candidate McNamara, you're up first.
Thank you. There it is. I'll quote an old song, I won't make promises that I can't keep. What will I do? As county judge, I will and I must stick to the Constitution. The sheriff is duly elected directly by the people, and he is not accountable to me as county judge. The county judge has no constitutional authority in this matter. 72% of the arrests come from the Austin Police Department. The sheriff only handles the jail. Travis County peace officers do use field release citations. That is, they are authorized to write up citations instead of booking offenders of minor crimes. Did you know that the Travis County Sheriff's Office was instrumental in getting that law passed? The bottom line is, as a Travis County judge, we have no say in this matter. That's as blunt as I can get. I would quote one quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. Nothing astonishes men so much as common sense and plain dealing. I think I've spoken pretty clearly. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate McNamara. We note your opposition. Thank you. Candidate Eckhart?
My answer to your question is yes. I am a former prosecutor and a former assistant county attorney. I know how this works. We have a plan, and the mayoral candidates have mentioned a part of the plan to you. More than 70, and as well as Mr. McNamara has also mentioned a portion of the plan to you. More than 70% of all people going through central booking are coming to us from APD. The mayoral candidates mentioned to you a directive to city management to look at a separate booking facility. I'm going to give you another twist on that idea. Do we want to build a separate $11 million booking facility to get around a political problem? The wonderful thing about democracy is that eventually your elected officials do represent the will of the people. To build a separate $11 million facility and then have democracy produce a sheriff that believes the way his community believes would create a circumstance where you had duplicative effort and higher taxes thereby. So my proposal, and I will work with the new city council and the mayor on this proposal, is for the county commissioners court to reopen the negotiation on the central booking contract and lease county facilities to a separate city magistration. It's true that the sheriff, under the Texas Constitution, has the full authority to set policy for individuals who are in his or her custody. But if they don't go into his or her custody, the Commissioner's Court is under its full authority to negotiate a contract for the use of our facility.
Thank you, Candidate Eckhart. For the next two questions of our evening, I'd like to introduce Ms. Karina Malone.
Thank you, Mr. Saborn. Hi, good evening. My name is Karina Malone. I am a member and leader with Austin Interfaith. I am the president of Oak Creek Village Tenants Association and a proud Capital Idea graduate. Our next two questions deal with topics that are very near and dear to my heart: affordable housing, Capital Idea, supportive services for Capital Idea. Question number 3. Despite the fact that businesses continue to move to Austin and thrive, the shared property tax burden on homeowners versus businesses has grown. At the same time, rental costs are skyrocketing. If elected, what will you do to keep home ownership affordable and promote more affordable and available rental properties? Each candidate has 3 minutes to speak, and please, let's start with candidate Judge Eckhart. Oh, sorry. No, that's fine.
And I'm just Sarah Eckhart for now. Let's get straight to the things that we can do. First of all, the Travis County Housing Corporation can be much more aggressive in its work with affordable housing developers, such as Foundation Communities, which I believe is in the audience tonight, to make capital available to good quality, low-income, affordable housing developers. Second, we can assess all Travis County-owned properties for the co-location of deeply affordable housing units, so that, for instance, Health and Human Services could be co-located in a building that also provides deeply affordable units without the added burden of the cost of carrying the dirt. Third, we can continue to explore and implement land trusts, either through our housing corporation or through private nonprofits. A land trust is a circumstance where someone, let's say Joe Smith, owns his house. He can no longer afford the taxes because the dirt under his house has become so supercharged valuable. So instead, he selects a nonprofit, sells the dirt at market value to that nonprofit, but maintains ownership of his house. A house that he can then will to his children or sell to another individual who is at 200% of the federal poverty line or below. I will also push for legislation to fix the commercial property owner's advantage in tax assessment. Let's be specific about what that means. That means sales price disclosure. That means also the inequity that when the Central Appraisal District loses a lawsuit against a big corporate entity, they have to pay that big corporate entity's high-priced lawyers' fees. If the big corporate entity loses against TCAD, they don't pay nothing as far as attorney's fees. So, why is it that TCAD is so conservative about bringing suit? Right? So that needs to change. Also, I want to pursue legislation, as I have done in the last 2 legislative sessions, to make the homestead exemption a flat dollar figure rather than a percentage. Let me walk you through that. If you've got a $300,000 home and you get a 20% exemption, then that means $60,000 of your home value is not taxed. But if you have a $3 million home, $600,000 of your home value is not taxed. So instead, we should have a flat dollar figure. We should say the homestead exemption. The homestead exemption is on, for instance, the first $100,000 of your home value. And that way, we will not bust the budget. We will just do right by those who are struggling to keep their homes.
Thank you, Sarah. Next, Judge Candidate McNamara.
Thank you, Corina. Rental costs are skyrocketing because property taxes are skyrocketing. If we lower the rate of property taxes, the higher cost of taxes won't have to be passed on to renters and to property owners. The city must enact homestead exemption of 20% now. They can give you that break immediately. That needs to be done. 38% of the city budget is dependent on property taxes, whereas 18% of your property taxes are county property taxes. We, the county commissioners, have the ability to lower your tax rate, yet year after year after year after year, your taxes keep going up. And there's no excuse for it. We have to tell them, and as your judge, I will act, to keep your lower taxes enacted. We've got to just stop turning the valve up. I see your house with a line going out of it directly to the local government, and through that goes your money. And you have to have your hand on that handle, cranking it down. You have to make your voices heard. They do not have to keep raising your taxes year after year with the incredible growth that we're having. It's not about the appraisals, and it's not about big business. It's about you and your home. If you get the large businesses to pay less taxes or to pay more taxes, that will not mean necessarily that you pay less. You've got to be responsible for your own property taxes. So go to the local government and tell them you want to pay less. If we want more job opportunities for low-income families and graduates, we must accommodate businesses as well as homeowners and renters. We must not divide our community against itself.
Candidate McNamara, I'm going to mark you down as no for both items. Next is our candidate Adler. Oh, no, Adler. Yep, well, do you want, okay, we had an order, but we're changing it. So next up is candidate Martinez.
I don't mind what order I go in. My answer's not going to change. Completely agree with Commissioner Eckhart. Across the board, 20% homestead exemption. We all need tax relief. We all would like to have tax relief, but let me regress. We don't all need it. We all would like it, and that's a big difference. When you talk about going to the legislature and working on property tax reform, I couldn't have said it better than Commissioner Eckhart. We have an inequitable system. We also have a system, though, that doesn't allow for the average middle-class working family to take a day or two off or to hire an attorney to go down to the appraisal district and appeal their property taxes. Large corporations do. They have that available to them. We must fund organizations like the East Austin Conservancy, who is providing financial literacy, who is helping homeowners protest their taxes year after year because of the inequity and the rise in the values. For the last 5 years, we have held your taxes flat or lowered the rate at the City of Austin. What's caused your taxes to go up is the inequity in the appraisal system. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we have a responsibility to adopt a budget and to fund sorely needed community programs, after-school programs that historically we haven't funded, but we did this year because we needed to, because those programs are being cut because the state of Texas cut $5 million this past June in after-school programming that affected almost 9,000 students in our area. We had a moral obligation to try to do everything we possibly can. But affordability isn't just about keeping things cheap. You and I know that the cost of goods and services goes up, so we have to fight for higher wages. I'm proud to have led the fight to ensure that corporations seeking incentives must pay $11 an hour minimum wage and must pay prevailing wage to construction workers. We've now adopted a new city policy that raised the living wage to $11.39 an hour, and we will attach an index to it so that it will continue to go up as the cost of living goes up over time. Those are the things that we can do to combat things like affordability, to create a more affordable Austin. But there's another component, and that is the fees, the fee structure within the city that is completely regressive, that if you live in a 500 square foot apartment or a 5,000 square foot home, you pay the same impact fees, you pay the same drainage user charge. Those are regressive fees that are hidden taxes that are unfair to the average ratepayer. We must restructure those fees, put them back into, we must every year gradually work to put them back into the general fund so that it is paid for equitably based on the value of your property and not based on a flat fee. Thank you.
Next candidate is candidate Adler.
We have an affordability crisis in this city. We're losing communities and we're losing people. Property values are increasing 3.5 times faster than the value of people's homes, and people are losing their homes because they can't pay their taxes. You know, we're on the top of a lot of lists. We're bringing in more jobs than anyone else in the country, but 60% of the jobs that we're bringing into this country into this city don't pay a living wage. We need to fix the underlying structure of what we're doing in the city, and it begins with property tax reform. I'm proposing a 20% property tax exemption. And let's pause for a second and let's talk about that. If we could do a flat property tax exemption, that's what we would need to do. But the law doesn't let us do that. If we could do a percentage and cap it, we should do that. But the law doesn't let us do that. What the law does let us do is it lets us do a percentage of people's income. The people down at the bottom end, the burden of property tax is 4 times greater than the top 1%. 4 times greater. Do you know how many homes there are at the median value and below? 200. There are 200,000 people living in 80,000 homes. Do you know how many $1 million homes there are in this city? 3,500. 9,000 people living in those homes. When I go around this city and someone looks at me and they say, I am losing my home. I have lived in my home for 40 years. It was the home I was going to die in, and now I'm having to sell that home because I can't pay my property tax. Do you have a tool you can use? And I say, well, we do have a tool, but there's 3,500 homes that are going to get more than you. You know what they say to me? I don't care about those 3,500 people. If you have a tool that can help me, use your tool. And that 20% exemption is what Travis County does right now. It's what Houston does right now. It's what Dallas does right now. It's what Fort Worth does right now. And the city of Austin needs to do that too. And you can do that without cutting services. And you can do that without adversely impacting tenants. You want to do something for tenants? For the last 8 years, we have had an incredibly regressive detention fee that's added to the water bills. Everybody pays that. Michael Dell pays the same amount you pay in your apartment. And it took a court a month and a half ago, or within the last month, to tell the city, after the suit's been pending for 8 years, that that's illegal and that's not proper for the city to do. There are different things we need to do. We need to look at economic incentives in this city, because you make things more affordable, not just by making them cost less, but by giving people more money to spend. We need to change the metric for success on how we look at incentives. We need to focus on middle-class jobs and training people for middle-class jobs. There are tools this city has to make growth pay for itself that we're not using right now that we need to use. We have an affordability crisis in this city, and we need to act because we are losing our diversity, and with that, our soul.
Thank you, Candidate Adler. Next, Candidate Cole.
Yes is the answer to your question. The city of Austin this year, under the leadership of Councilmember Tovo, and I was also a sponsor and worked to champion this, did enact a property tax flat rate exemption of $5,000. Was that enough? No. Was it the maximum of what we could do? Yes. If I am elected mayor, I will go to the legislature and put as a part of our legislative agenda to have more authority to enact a percentage, not a percentage, a flat rate, so that no matter what the value of your house, you get the same amount of homestead exemption, because that's what equality does. We had a bond election in 2012, and the affordable housing bonds failed. I went back, talked to some of you, Austin Interfaith, and many of the stakeholders, foundation communities. We have to do something about this, because we have an affordable housing crisis, and it especially exists for people who are earning 50% or less of MFI. And we went and equipped the voters with the information and the choice, and the second time around, those bonds passed, because the city of Austin understood that we must make this commitment to affordable housing, and I will continue to champion that. I was also the lead sponsor, with a lot of help from my co-sponsor, Bill Spellman, on a source of income resolution, which basically says that apartment owners cannot discriminate against people who use Section 8 to pay for their rents. And what that does is it enables people of various income levels to live all over Austin, and makes that housing, that type of rental property, more accessible and thereby more affordable. So I look forward to working with Austin Interfaith and the other stakeholders to put a dent in our affordability dilemma. Thank you.
Candidate Cole? Candidate Cole? I have one question to clarify. You spoke about the homestead exemption being for the flat rate at $5K. Do you happen to know why it's just $5K?
The
Why isn't-
legislature, it's the legislature. As always, it's the legislature.
Okay, thank you. Our next and final question, question number 4. Capital Idea has been extremely successful in breaking the cycle of poverty. They do so through supporting low-income adults in their efforts to earn college-level credentials and entering in a living wage across a wide range of professions. If elected, will you commit to working with Austin Interfaith, the city and the county, in doubling the financial commitment before the end of your term? Also, for so many so-called entry-level jobs, especially those in private sector technology, both job history and degrees are necessary to be successful. How will you expand the city and the county's long-term support with Capital Idea through ways to implement the Earn and Learn internships for both Capital Idea graduates and ACC students? Let's please start with candidate Martinez.
Thank you, Karina. As I mentioned earlier, and as you all know, there's not near enough funding that goes to social service contracting. This year, it's about $13.2 million, but thankfully, myself and the rest of my colleagues, except for the mayor, voted for an additional $1 million into social service contracting, which hadn't been increased in quite some time. My commitment is not only to work with you to double Capital Idea funding. We should be doubling all social service contracting just this year alone. And just today, quite frankly, this afternoon, we spent 2 hours hearing testimony from many social service providers. There were over $30 million in requests for proposals. We only have $14.2 million to provide to those agencies. The demand, we know, based on those applications alone, is at least double. We must do everything we can to increase that and to double our efforts. But here's the other thing that I've worked on that I think is critically important. Much like the police department that's tied to an index that for every 1,000 people we hire 2 more officers, we need to have a policy that speaks specifically to social service contracting that says as demand increases and as the poverty rate increases, our funding increases exponentially to cover that demand and to make sure that those who are in most need are taken care of first. And that's this policy that we are crafting right now will be brought before every city council every budget year before any decisions are made so that they know, that council at that time knows the need and the demand that's out there so that they can make appropriate decisions during the budget process. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Martinez. Please, next, candidate Cole.
Yes is the answer to your question. I think we have discussed at length the need to make a commitment to workforce development and actually moving people from poverty into a living wage and beyond. I can't remember a name that earns $25 an hour. I want to talk to her about that. The question is, how will you expand Capital Idea and the policy issues that you would make? I would fully support an internship program where the students actually got an opportunity to work at the City of Austin in some type of internship program. I think on-the-job training is very important. And I would also make a real push to have that happen at our other governmental entities. I think that's important. The other thing that I would really push is that when we make economic development decisions, I don't think we do enough in the metrics to consider the impact on our schools and workforce development. And I think that companies who come here should make a bigger commitment to help in either directly financially or giving internships to the students who need them. I think I'm the only one that hasn't had the chance to thank Austin Interfaith and Capital Ideas, so I want to say that. Bye.
Thank you, Candidate Cole. Next, Candidate Adler.
You know, the mayor's job is a big job in this city, but we need to make the mayor's job even bigger than it is right now. We have a chance with this new government, this new 10-1 system, to reinvent how we do government culture. And we need to take advantage of that. And that includes how the mayor works. You know, we shouldn't be limited to the last minute, end of the month situation that you were in, trying to get another $1 million or another $300,000 here at the end of the budget. The city needs to be involved, and the mayor's office needs to be involved in a very new way. We can look at mayors in other cities that set community-wide agendas, that set missions, that set agendas for entire cities, which is why in San Antonio, it was the mayor who put pre-K, universal pre-K, on the city's agenda and then drove to that. We should be doing that kind of thing in this city. And I pledge to do that in this city with respect to two real important issues that we've discussed today. The first one was education, and the second one is job training, the kind of work that's happening with the Career Expressway. Because we are losing our middle class. We have poverty that's growing, not only the 10th in the city, but in the country, but also the second fastest suburban poverty rate in the entire country. We need to change the metric that we use for economic development so that it's not just looking at a return on investment, but on a return on our values. And we need to engage not just the city and the city budget in this, but we need to use the greater community tools that the mayor has with his power to convene and the power to set an agenda. The mayor should be working with the nonprofit sector of this community and the philanthropic part of this community. You know, Capital Idea does a great job. They have 800 clients and 70 graduates. It's a question of scale. We should have 5 times, 10 times, 20 times the number of people. And we can get that if we focus on it. 10% of the money for that program comes from private philanthropy. 10%, that should be much higher than that.
Thank you, Candidate Adler. Next candidate.
I'm sorry. And I'd like to just say, to make sure everyone in the room knows, that in the city of San Antonio is our sister organization, Citizens Organized for Public Service and the Metro Alliance, and it was our sister organization that passed that proposal to have universal pre-K. So let's give recognition for them as well.
Next candidate, Candidate McNamara.
Corina, before the night's out, you're going to have that just rolling off your tongue.
I hope so.
I appreciate so much being here, and while some of my answers might not have won 100% yes, on this particular item, I totally agree and heartily back it, and I concur with the mayor, candidate Adler. We can do more. As Travis County, I'll support organizations such as Capital Idea. I was aware of them before tonight and helped further their goals. The details of the financial commitment, of course, will require more research at budgeting time, but I personally will do everything that I can to ensure that this program grows and moves forward. Thank you. The effort of organizations like Capital Idea to move people from welfare to work is a concept I've supported for years. Personally, as I said, I'll do whatever I can. I want to share with you just briefly, as a child, when I was 5 years old, my father died and our family business burned to the ground. So my mother struggled to raise 4 kids. I was the youngest of 6, and she struggled, and I worked since I was 10 years old. I know what it means to go and learn how to work. And I know what it means to try to get ahead when it's very, very hard. I was trained in the Navy, and I came out of the Navy, and the Navy subsequently helped me get through the University of Texas. So I owe a lot to other people, but God is good, and I've made a good life, and I want to recognize my wife, Julia, for being here with me. But I'll tell you this, and I'll talk straight to you, but I will not make promises to you that I can't achieve personally, but I will tell you that if I believe in what you're doing, then I will work with you to help you achieve your goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Candidate McNamara. Candidate Sarah.
Thank you, Karina. I'm the closer. I know y'all want to get out of here, or I hope you don't. I hope you want to keep talking about this stuff because it's really important. So I'm going to reiterate my pledge to work on doubling the funding for workforce and education through Travis County. Furthermore, I'm going to pledge to you something that is near and dear to my heart. Along with having been a former prosecutor, I'm also an adjunct professor at the LBJ School for Public Affairs, and I love numbers, and I love evaluations, and I love making sure that every program to which we put your tax dollars actually works to build an economy of shared prosperity. So, yeah, hold the applause, because that's just taking time from us getting to the door and getting to our dinner and our families. Here's what I'm talking about. In doubling funding for workforce and education, I want to continue to vigorously evaluate those workforce development programs. Any of y'all hear of the Ray Marshall Center and its evaluation of Capital IDEA? It evaluated Capital IDEA, and it was a rock star of effectiveness, along with programs like Goodwill Industries, which was also a rock star in a different way. I believe we should also evaluate all of our pretrial and post-trial programs in the same way to make sure that every graduate of our programs at the county, whether it's workforce, education, or a program that came through the criminal justice system, graduates people who are healthy, educated, and get and keep a good wage job. And I want to introduce one other idea to you in my last 15 seconds, something called a community benefit agreement. And Travis County should be working toward those in every contract we let, whether it's for a tax rebate for a big corporation, which I don't favor, but they happen, or whether it's a procurement or service contract. So employees of those companies are paying livable wages with benefits and good working conditions. They are providing, under our contract that's enforceable, they are providing opportunity for grads for our workforce development programs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, leaders, we are going to review the responses that we had from candidates. So, on the PowerPoint to this direction, you will see their responses. Now, some of us have made comments on the responses, but it is up to you to interpret what you've heard and what you will soon see, and to record those responses. There we go. To record these responses so that you can make an informed decision and vote your conscience during early voting or on election day. So we'll move through these priorities. We'll move to the next one. To give everyone a chance to record these responses. We'll move to the next one. And this is our last response. And I want to remind everyone, I want to just say that we've heard a lot of stories tonight, but it's important to remember, as one theologian said, insight never liberated anyone. So it is up to us to make these commitments real. And Rabbi Friedman will lay out our next steps to that.
So it's important for all of us to realize, and for all of our candidates to realize, that part of the role of Austin Interfaith is to mobilize. And that since June, we have knocked on the doors of over 2,000 voters, as 71 leaders have gone out into 16 neighborhood walks. We've got another 13 of them going, and we've got another six phone banks that we all have an opportunity to participate in. So here's the thing. If you have heard things tonight, and I'm sure you have, that have inspired you to go out and get not only ourselves to the polls, because that's easy, but you got to take somebody with you. And if it's even better, take more than somebody with you. These commitment cards are very real. We ask you to fill them out because they're basically saying, not only to us as a group, but to yourselves. This is what I'm going to do to make sure that these issues are addressed, and these issues are addressed in a fashion that is appropriate in our city for the kind of place that we want to build together. If you are not by any chance, I know I'm preaching the wrong group, but if by any chance you are not registered to vote, there's voter registration out there. If you have moved recently and you didn't switch that address, those folks can help you with that as well. So on our way out, if that is indeed something that's of concern, check it out. Would you please give to our floor team these yellow commitment forms indicating our commitment to vote and to get others to do exactly the same. Also, the opportunity to participate in a walk or make calls. This is what's going to make the difference, folks.
So, are you ready, Austin Interfaith? Yes.
We are going to close with a moment of blessing. So while you're filling out those cards, we're going to close with a moment of blessing. There is a blessing that is shared within both Jewish and Christian liturgy, asking that each and every one of us enjoys a life filled with good health, a sense of God's presence, and a sense of God's blessing for peace. So, as our benediction tonight, we're going to have the Kol HaKavod ensemble perform Ruach Elohim.
And before they do, I'm sorry, we forgot to mention one thing. When you go to vote, the ballot is going to be quite long. It is very important that you go to the end. At the very end is not only the mayor and council races, but especially importantly, the ACC bond. So do not go quickly through the ballot. Go to the very end. Is everybody going to do that? Yeah. Okay, now our blessing.
And if you vote straight ticket, that does not count towards the mayor's race or the bond. You got to go all the way down.
Got it?
one of our promises to the candidates tonight was that they'd be able to get a little rest yet tonight and be with their families. So I'm going to ask them to depart. Go ahead, and we'll wait for them to depart as well as the other folks on the bima. And please go with our thanks. And as they depart, we thank you for the blessing of your presence tonight. Good night, everyone. Drive carefully.